There comes a moment in every great leader's life when the noise of the crowd grows louder than the voice of truth, when the pressure of opposition grows heavier than the promise of purpose. And right now, Donald Trump's presidency stands in such a moment. A storm of political chaos, spiritual testing, and personal reckoning. The world watches, critics cheer, and supporters pray, but make no mistake. This is no ordinary trial. This is a test of character, conviction, and calling. Trump's presidency is in serious trouble, not just because of the political opposition that rises against him, but because leadership at the highest level is always forged in fire. Power reveals who we are. Pressure refines who we become. In moments like this, history is not written by the ones who shout the loudest, but by those who stand the longest. When Donald Trump first stepped into leadership, he did so not as a polished politician, but as a man of boldness, unafraid to speak truth as he saw it. He carried himself as a warrior, fighting what he believed to be the decay of American values, the erosion of faith, the confusion of identity, and the weakening of national will. But every warrior eventually faces a battlefield where their greatest enemy is not the opponent across from them. It's the doubt within them. Right now, America is watching a drama unfold. Accusations, investigations, betrayals, and political firestorms swirl around the presidency like a tornado. But beneath it all, something far deeper is happening, a shaking, a sifting, a refining. Because when God wants to build a leader, He first breaks their pride, tests their patience, and purifies their motives. The question that hangs in the air is simple. Will Trump crumble under pressure, or will he rise through it? The outcome of this moment will define not only his legacy, but also the moral direction of a nation that has lost sight of truth. We live in a time where power is worshipped, truth is twisted, and leadership is measured by popularity rather than principle. But true leadership, the kind that shapes history, is never about applause. It's about endurance. It's about holding your ground when the world tells you to retreat. It's about standing in the fire and saying, "I will not bow." Trump's presidency is being pressed from every side. Yet sometimes it takes pressure to produce purpose. It takes betrayal to reveal loyalty. It takes darkness to reveal light. Many people only see the political drama, the endless noise of media attacks and legal challenges. But there is something more profound at work, a divine shaking designed to expose what is real and remove what is false. For years, America has been drifting, divided by race, poisoned by hatred, and blinded by pride. The presidency, whether we love or loathe the man who holds it, is a mirror reflecting the condition of the people. And what do we see in that mirror today? We see fear. We see pride. We see a nation that has forgotten how to kneel before God. Trump's trial, in many ways, is America's trial. Leadership without humility becomes tyranny. Strength without wisdom becomes destruction. And boldness without truth becomes chaos. Trump's challenge right now is not just to fight the attacks of men, it is to find clarity before God. Because when a leader's heart drifts from truth, even the strongest tower begins to shake. But this is where the beauty of divine testing lies. It's never meant to destroy, it's meant to refine. Perhaps this trouble, this chaos, this heavy storm around Trump's presidency is not just judgment, but mercy in disguise. Maybe it's God calling America through this crisis to return to honesty, unity, and faith. Maybe it's a reminder that no leader, no matter how powerful, can carry a nation without divine wisdom. Every great nation faces moments of truth. Rome had its decline, Babylon had its fall, and every empire that forgets its moral foundation begins to crumble from within. America is not exempt. We have traded truth for convenience, faith for fame, and unity for division. But storms have a purpose. They strip away the illusion of control and force us to face what's real. Trump's presidency is in serious trouble, yes, but maybe that trouble is the soil where transformation begins. Because every resurrection starts with a crucifixion. Every great awakening begins with a shaking. Every true leader must first walk through the fire before they can lead others through it. What the world calls trouble, heaven might call training. What the media calls chaos, God might call correction. And what looks like the end could simply be the preparation for a greater beginning. Trump's rise was never just about politics. It was about disruption, a shaking of systems that had long been corrupted by pride and compromise. But even disruptors must eventually face the mirror of humility. If a leader is to stand strong, his foundation must be built not on ego, but on truth. America has watched leaders rise and fall. But what determines who stands in the end is not charisma, it's conviction. It's not wealth, it's wisdom. It's not fame, it's faith. Right now, Trump must remember the power of these eternal truths. Because in the silence after the applause fades, every leader stands alone before God. And in that moment, it's not the world's opinion that matters, it's heaven's. When storms rage, they don't come to destroy the ship. They come to reveal the captain. The real question is not whether Trump can survive the attacks of men. It's whether he can navigate the storm within himself. Can he stay anchored in faith when everything familiar is shaking? Can he remain humble when pride whispers to fight harder? Can he lead from a place of strength rooted in truth rather than vengeance? This is not just about one man. It's about a nation learning what leadership truly means. Because every citizen looks to their leader as a reflection of what's possible. And if a leader fights through the fire with grace and faith, it gives the people hope that they too can overcome their own storms. We must remember, greatness is not measured by how high you climb, but by how many times you rise after falling. Trouble is not the enemy, fear is. Trials are not punishment, they're preparation. The difference between failure and transformation is how we respond to the fire. If Trump's presidency falls, it won't be because of external attacks. It will be because the internal foundation wasn't strong enough to bear the weight of the moment. But if he endures, if he humbles himself, if he seeks divine guidance beyond political counsel, then this storm will not end him. It will define him. And that's the message for America too. We cannot escape the shaking. We cannot hide from the truth, but we can be renewed through it. Our strength as a nation does not lie in our economy, our weapons, or our politics. It lies in our moral compass, our faith, and our unity. Trump's presidency, under fire, is a prophetic picture of a nation in crisis. A nation that has become divided, distracted, and desperate for meaning. Maybe this trouble is heaven's megaphone saying, America, wake up, return to truth. Return to humility. Return to me. When history looks back on this season, it will not remember every scandal or headline. It will remember how the nation responded. Did we let division consume us? Or did we find the courage to rebuild together? Did we allow bitterness to blind us? Or did we rise above and seek understanding? True change never begins in the White House. It begins in your house. It begins in the hearts of people who refuse to let darkness dictate their destiny. Whether Trump rises or falls, the call to every American remains the same. Stand for truth, seek justice, walk humbly, and never lose faith. There's a reason storms come. They purify the air. They wash away the dust. They prepare the ground for new growth. And maybe, just maybe, this trouble, this shaking in Trump's presidency, is preparing the ground for something greater. A rebirth of faith, a renewal of integrity, a revival of vision. Because the true measure of leadership is not how you act when things are easy, but how you endure when everything seems lost. When friends turn away, when enemies multiply, when the night grows long, that's when real character is forged. And if Trump can rise through this storm with faith, humility, and courage, he may not just save his presidency, he may help awaken a nation. But that's the choice for him and for all of us. Will we let trouble destroy us, or will we let it transform us? Will we give in to fear, or will we rise with faith? Trouble is not the end of the story. In fact, it's often the beginning of a greater one. Because history's greatest victories were always born out of history's darkest nights. And maybe, just maybe, this storm will lead to dawn. Trump's presidency may be in serious trouble, but the soul of America is being tested too. And it's time we all remember that no political power can heal a nation, only spiritual revival can. No law can unite a people divided by hate, only love can. And no leader, no matter how strong, can save a nation without God's hand guiding them. So let the storm rage, let the critics speak, let the fire refine, because trouble, when faced with faith, becomes the pathway to transformation. And when the smoke clears and history turns the page, may it be said that we as a people chose faith over fear, truth over lies, unity over division, and courage over compromise. For that is how nations rise, that is how leaders are made, and that is how purpose is fulfilled, not in comfort, but in the fire. Because every storm eventually runs out of rain, every night eventually gives way to dawn, and every leader, when refined through trial, discovers the true meaning of destiny. So, yes, Trump's presidency is in serious trouble. But perhaps through that trouble, both he and this nation will finally find what they truly need: humility, wisdom, and a return to the truth that has always made America strong. Not politics, not pride, but faith. As Trump's presidency stands at a defining crossroad, where the weight of decisions, destiny, and divine testing are colliding, we find ourselves witnessing a moment unlike any other in modern American history. It is not merely a political crisis. It is a moral and spiritual crossroad for a nation and its leader. Every great leader, every movement, and every nation comes to a point where it must decide who it truly is, not by words, not by promises, but by actions taken when the pressure is greatest. For Donald Trump, this crossroad represents more than just the challenge of governing amid chaos. It is a moment of revelation. The spotlight is no longer just on policies, speeches, or headlines. It is on the man himself, his faith, his conviction, his courage, and his willingness to face truth. Because when destiny and divine testing intersect, every mask falls away. You cannot hide behind popularity or political strength when heaven calls you to account. You cannot escape the refining fire of truth when your purpose is being weighed in eternity's balance. In this very moment, Trump stands where kings, prophets, and leaders throughout history have stood. in that sacred place where God's purpose meets human pride. It's the place where every decision carries eternal consequence. The crossroad is not about left or right, Democrat or Republican. It is about right and wrong, truth and deception, pride and humility. It's about whether this leader and the nation that follows him will choose repentance over rebellion, courage over comfort, and faith over fear. The crossroad is not an easy place to stand. It is where the applause of men fades and the silence of testing begins. It's where decisions are made that will echo for generations. For Trump, this means facing not only the external battles of politics, media, and enemies, but also the internal war within his own heart. It is the war every leader must fight. The battle between self and surrender, between control and calling, between doing what is easy and doing what is right. At such a crossroad, the leader must ask the hardest questions. What am I truly fighting for? What kind of legacy will I leave? Am I leading for personal glory or divine purpose? These are not questions that can be answered in the noise of crowds or the glare of cameras. They can only be answered in the quiet moments of reflection, where the soul stands alone before God. When the weight of destiny presses down, it reveals whether a man's foundation is built on sand or stone. Trouble, criticism, betrayal, these are not just political obstacles. They are divine instruments. They strip away the false to reveal the real. They expose weakness, but they also awaken strength. The crossroad is not meant to destroy. It is meant to define. It is the place where a man either bends beneath the burden or stands taller because of it. Trump's presidency at this moment carries that tension, the weight of immense decisions that will determine not only his future, but the moral compass of an entire generation. Every choice he makes now, every word he speaks, and every stand he takes will be measured by both history and heaven. Leadership in times of peace is easy. Leadership in times of crisis reveals the heart. This defining crossroad is also America's. Because as the leader goes, so often the nation follows. If the leader chooses truth, humility, and wisdom, the people are inspired to do the same. But if pride takes the throne, if division becomes the language of the day, then the nation's soul suffers. This is why moments like these are so critical. They are not just political turning points. They are spiritual ones. When we say that Trump's presidency stands at a defining crossroad, we are saying that destiny itself is in motion. Heaven is watching how this leader and the nation that surrounds him will respond to pressure. Will this be a season of collapse or a moment of correction? Will this be remembered as the downfall of arrogance or the awakening of courage? It is in these moments that God often does his greatest work. Because when man reaches his limit, that's where divine strength begins. The crossroad is never comfortable, but it is always purposeful. It is where the ego is humbled, where vision is refined, and where true character is revealed. For Trump, this divine testing is not punishment, it's preparation. Preparation for something greater than politics, greater than power. Preparation for redemption. But that redemption requires surrender to truth, to humility, to the understanding that leadership is not about control, but about calling. Every great leader has faced such a defining moment. Moses faced it before the Red Sea, David faced it before Goliath, Esther faced it before her king, and Lincoln faced it before a divided nation. Each one stood at a crossroad where human strength was not enough. They had to choose faith when fear was easier. They had to trust purpose when pressure screamed otherwise. Trump's crossroad is no different. The trials, the opposition, the relentless scrutiny, they are all part of a larger test. A test not of his popularity, but of his purity, not of his wealth, but of his wisdom, not of his influence, but of his integrity. When a man stands at such a crossroad, he must decide who he truly is when no one else is watching. Will he fight for truth or for ego? Will he listen to wise counsel or to flattering voices? Will he seek peace or fuel division? Every choice will carve the path of destiny. And yet, this crossroad is not a place of despair. It is a place of opportunity. Because it is only in the collision of destiny and divine testing that a leader discovers his real strength. When everything else is stripped away, when allies become few and the future uncertain, that is when the true measure of greatness is revealed. So, yes, Trump's presidency stands at a defining crossroad, but so does the heart of America. This is not the time for blame or bitterness. It is a time for awakening, for reflection, for courage, because when leaders rise to the occasion, nations rise with them. And when leaders fall to pride, nations fall into chaos. In this moment, what America needs is not perfection from its leaders, but humility. Not power, but purpose. Not revenge, but restoration. The defining crossroad demands that both Trump and the nation look beyond politics and seek the higher path, the path that leads to truth, unity, and grace. For the weight of decisions now being made will echo long after the headlines fade. And someday, history will look back on this moment and ask, did he rise above, or did he fall beneath the weight of destiny? This is the moment when divine testing meets human decision. It is the crucible of purpose, and every fire, though painful, refines what it touches. If Trump chooses rightly, with humility, integrity, and faith, this crossroad may not mark his downfall, but his transformation. And through that transformation, perhaps the nation too will find its way back to strength, to vision, and to truth. Leadership under fire is not about comfort, but about conviction, and this moment will reveal Trump's true strength. It is easy to lead when the path is clear, when the crowd is cheering, and when every decision brings applause. But true leadership is never tested in comfort. It is proven in the furnace of adversity. The weight of leadership is not measured in times of peace, but in how a man stands when the fire surrounds him, when the air grows thin, and when every voice seems to shout against him. Donald Trump stands in that fire now. The stage is no longer filled with celebration and victory chants. It is filled with pressure, scrutiny, and uncertainty. The very forces that once elevated him now seem to rise against him. Friends are turning quiet, allies are becoming cautious, and critics are multiplying by the hour. Yet this is precisely the kind of moment that defines whether a man is driven by ego or anchored by conviction. Conviction is not about stubbornness. It's about standing on truth when compromise seems more convenient. It's about holding firm to values when every incentive says to abandon them. And for Trump, this is the refining moment, the line where comfort ends and character begins. Because leadership under fire is not about popularity, polls, or press conferences. It's about the quiet resilience that comes from knowing who you are and why you were called to lead in the first place. When a leader faces the storm, the temptation is always to retreat, to protect oneself, to strike back, or to surrender to bitterness. But real strength is revealed in restraint. Real leadership is seen not in the noise of reaction, but in the stillness of resolve. When everything around you is shaking, when enemies mock and supporters doubt, that is when conviction must speak louder than fear. History has never remembered leaders for how comfortable their journeys were. It remembers them for how they stood in discomfort. Abraham Lincoln led a nation through its darkest hour, not because he was free from pain or doubt, but because he refused to abandon his principles. Winston Churchill faced nights of bombs and despair, yet his voice reminded a trembling nation that courage was greater than catastrophe. Moses faced a people who doubted him, yet he led them forward through faith rather than fear. Now, Trump faces his own defining test. The fire surrounding him is not only political, it's moral, emotional, and spiritual. Every accusation, every headline, every moment of chaos is part of a greater battle, not for control, but for clarity. Will he cling to conviction, or will he bow to comfort? Will he lead through truth, or be led by anger? Leadership under fire demands a rare kind of strength. The strength to stay calm when everything is burning. The strength to forgive when betrayal cuts deep. And the strength to stand alone when others choose the easy path of silence. It's not the kind of strength you build in rallies or debates. It's the kind that's forged in prayer, reflection, and humility. The fire always exposes what's real. Gold is purified only when it is melted. Diamonds are formed only under pressure. And leaders are refined only through trials. This fire around Trump's presidency may look destructive, but it also carries the potential to purify, to strip away the excess, to burn off the pride, to reveal the core of who he truly is. Because in truth, leadership is not about control, it's about calling. It's about standing for something bigger than yourself. The man who leads only for power will collapse when that power is threatened. But the man who leads by conviction will stand even when the world turns against him. Trump's true strength will not be revealed in how fiercely he fights his enemies, but in how faithfully he faces his own weaknesses. The test of leadership is not how you handle victory, it's how you handle vulnerability. Anyone can smile in the sunshine, only the steadfast can stand in the storm. Conviction doesn't mean stubbornly defending your own will. It means courageously following divine direction. Sometimes that means admitting mistakes. Sometimes it means staying silent when the world demands a reaction. Sometimes it means walking alone, trusting that truth will vindicate you when time and people cannot. This is where Trump stands now, in that uncomfortable space between public opinion and divine purpose. The crowd wants drama, but God desires depth. The world wants quick answers, but destiny requires patience. True strength is not about fighting every battle that appears before you. It's about discerning which battles are worth your soul. And yet, this is the paradox of leadership under fire. While it breaks many, it also builds a few. The fire that consumes one man can refine another. The very storms that threaten to drown a leader can also teach him how to walk on water, if he keeps his eyes fixed on truth and faith. For Trump, this is not just another political test. It is a spiritual one. The question is no longer whether he can command attention or defy opposition. We already know he can. The question is whether he can find humility in power, peace in pressure, and wisdom in warfare. That is what separates those who lead for a season from those who leave a lasting legacy. In this moment, as the fire rages, Trump's heart is being measured not by the media, not by his rivals, but by the one who tests the motives of every leader. And this test will reveal what no election ever could: his true strength. Because the measure of strength is not found in the absence of weakness, but in the refusal to surrender to it. It's not found in how loud you speak, but in how deeply you believe. True strength is calm under criticism, grounded in truth and unshaken by fear. If Trump stands firm in conviction, if he chooses principle over pride and purpose over politics, then this season of fire will not consume him, it will crown him. Because every leader who survives the fire emerges stronger, wiser, and purer than before. Leadership under fire is not for the faint of heart. It is a lonely road, a place where conviction must carry you when applause fades and faith must guide you when sight fails. But it is also the place where history's greatest leaders are born. And perhaps, just perhaps, this very moment, this fiery testing, will become the crucible that defines not only Trump's true strength, but also his truest purpose. For the strongest steel is forged in the hottest flame, and the greatest leaders rise not from comfort, but from conviction. The crisis surrounding his presidency is not just political, it's spiritual, a wake-up call for America to re-examine truth, humility, and moral courage. What we are witnessing is far deeper than the battles of parties or the noise of elections. It's not merely a struggle over policies, laws, or political power. This is a shaking of the very soul of a nation, a moment when heaven itself seems to whisper, "America, it's time to look within." Politics may set the stage, but the real drama is spiritual. The unrest, division, corruption, and confusion we see are outward symptoms of an inward sickness, a moral drift that has carried America away from the foundation that once made it great. We have become obsessed with image instead of integrity, success instead of substance, power instead of purpose. And through the chaos surrounding Trump's presidency, something deeper is being revealed: the condition of the American heart. This is not merely about one man under pressure. It's about an entire nation being forced to confront its reflection. The crisis around Trump is a mirror, showing us who we have become as a people. We point fingers, but what if this storm is not punishment, but purification? What if this is not about destruction, but about awakening? For too long, truth has been traded for convenience. People speak what is popular instead of what is right. The line between honesty and deception has blurred, not only in politics, but in our daily lives. We no longer ask, "Is this true?" but rather, "Does this help me win?" America, in its pursuit of progress, has drifted from principle. We have built towers of technology, but neglected the foundation of morality. We have gained influence, but lost innocence. And now, this shaking is calling us back to the truth we abandoned. The turmoil in Trump's presidency is forcing America to face uncomfortable questions. Have we allowed pride to replace humility? Have we mistaken arrogance for strength? Have we become so blinded by partisanship that we've forgotten compassion? These are not political questions, they are moral ones. Because when truth dies, nations fall. When humility disappears, division takes its place. And when moral courage is lost, chaos becomes inevitable. This is why this moment matters. It's not simply about defending or opposing Trump. It's about discerning what this season is revealing. Every generation faces a divine test, a moment when God allows the light of truth to shine on the darkness we've ignored. Sometimes that light exposes our institutions, sometimes our leaders, and sometimes ourselves. In this moment, all three are being exposed. Trump's presidency has become a national mirror. Supporters see in him defiance, boldness, and the courage to challenge the establishment. Critics see pride, recklessness, and moral failure. But beyond both perspectives lies a deeper truth. God is allowing America to see the cost of its divided heart. The chaos is not only in the White House, it's in our houses. The corruption is not just in government, it's in our culture. The deception is not only in the media, it's in our own hearts. This is why this crisis is spiritual. Because politics can legislate behavior, but only God can transform hearts. Laws can restrain evil, but only truth can restore righteousness. A nation cannot be healed by policy alone. It must return to the principles that honor God and uplift humanity: truth, humility, and moral courage. Truth is the first to be tested. In an age of misinformation and manipulation, truth has become uncomfortable. People would rather follow the narrative that benefits them than the reality that challenges them. But without truth, justice collapses, and without justice, freedom dies. America's strength was never in her wealth or weapons. It was in her moral conviction, her belief that right and wrong mattered, that truth was sacred. This crisis calls us to reclaim that belief. Humility is the next to be restored. Pride has infected every corner of our nation, from politics to pulpits, from corporations to communities. Everyone wants to be heard, but few want to listen. Everyone wants to lead, but few want to serve. And yet, the greatest leaders in history were never those who exalted themselves, but those who humbled themselves. Humility doesn't mean weakness. It means wisdom. It means knowing that without divine guidance, human power is dangerous. This is the lesson America must learn again. And then there is moral courage, the backbone of any great society. It takes courage to tell the truth when lies are easier. It takes courage to admit fault when pride demands silence. It takes courage to stand for righteousness when the world mocks you for it. Moral courage is not loud. It is steady. It is not showy. It is steadfast. It does not bend to pressure. It bows only to truth. America's founders built this nation on moral courage. They risked everything, their comfort, their safety, their future, because they believed in something eternal. That same courage must rise again if this nation is to survive the storms ahead. Because no constitution can protect a people who have lost their conscience. Trump's presidency is shaking the nation awake, not to destroy it, but to deliver it. Every accusation, every controversy, every clash is like thunder before a storm of renewal. God does not expose to shame. He exposes to heal. The darkness that's coming to light is not the end. It's the beginning of transformation, if we are willing to repent and return. The wake-up call is clear. America cannot move forward without moral clarity. We cannot rebuild unity on the foundation of deception. We cannot restore greatness without returning to goodness. This is not about political allegiance. It's about spiritual alignment. A divided nation cannot stand, but a humbled nation can rise again. Every empire that has fallen, Babylon, Rome, Greece, fell not because of external enemies, but internal decay. And if America ignores this warning, history will not spare us the same lesson. But if we listen, if we turn from pride and seek truth again, there is still hope. Because God never allows shaking without offering restoration, in this hour, America must decide, will we keep running from truth, or will we confront it? Will we keep blaming others, or will we humble ourselves? Will we keep hiding behind politics, or will we admit this is a spiritual battle that requires spiritual strength? If this nation is to heal, it must start with the heart. We must teach our children integrity again. We must demand honesty from leaders again. We must honor truth over tribalism, justice over convenience, and righteousness over revenge. The crisis around Trump's presidency has peeled back the layers of illusion. It has shown us that even the mightiest structures can shake, that even the loudest leaders can fall silent, and that even the proudest nations can stumble. But in that trembling lies an opportunity, the chance to rebuild not on pride, but on purpose. This is our wake-up call, not to lose hope, but to rediscover it. To stop shouting at one another and start seeking truth together. To stop waiting for politicians to change things and start allowing God to change us. Because no election can save America, only repentance can. So let this crisis not be remembered as the end of something, but as the beginning of revival. Let it not divide us further, but drive us deeper into humility, into truth, into courage. Let it be the moment when America once more finds her soul.